Hey guys, it's Pete from Pete for Anxiety here, the mental health podcast, breaking the stigma that mental health is talked about again. Welcome in today's episode. Before we get started today, we need to cover a few things really quick. Let's talk about the Pete for Anxiety Patreon first off. It's only $1, guys. $1. What does $1 get you? $1 gets you into the exclusive episodes I am recording currently. I'm actually focusing on certain different diagnoses of things to show you guys what it actually looks like as it manifests in a person. So why not for $1, judges? Yeah, they said $1. I just checked with them too. See, they said it was okay. It was $1 anyways. Let's also talk about the Oracle Talk Radio Networks app. In case you can't be here live listening to me, watching this video, supporting the show, you can listen to it on the radio app. Why not? It connects us live to our 365 radio. Just go to your app stores and download the Oracle Talk Radio Network. You'll see the big old Oracle Talk Radio Network app logo right on there. Download it. It'll connect you to me, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, to Pete for Anxiety when I'm live doing my thing right here, informing the world and raising mental health awareness. So where are you going to be? 10 a.m. Of course. Come on. We just talked about this. Pay attention for once. Damn. Do y'all know how to listen? And as always, guys, like, follow, and share the YouTube channel. If you guys like what you're seeing, leave some comments, man. We want to know. I want to know if you like what on. You want to be on the show? Let me know. Hit me up at PeteVersusAnxietyPod@gmail.com. And as always, guys, enjoy the show. And by the way, did I mention to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure because some of y'all are hard of hearing in the back, may have to yell loud or get a megaphone or something. But, anyways, let's get today's show started. Y'all have a great one. Enjoy. Guys, welcome into another exciting episode of Pete versus Anxiety, the mental health podcast breaking the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. My guest today is the best-selling author of 11 books, including her critically acclaimed Emotional Detox series books, the founder of Emotional Detox Coaching, and the host of Just Ask Spirit podcast, Sherianna Boyle. How you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. Like I said, and I was telling her before we got on here that, let me tell you, that is just a bit of her accomplishments, man. Like, she's got so much on there. It's crazy.
You're very kind. Thank you. Well, I'm probably a lot older than you, Pete, so that I have more time.
So why don't you give everybody a little rundown about yourself? I mean, I can only do a great intro, but it's always great when it comes from the person themselves.
Sure. So I'm an author and I've published 11 books. As you mentioned, I published the Emotional Detox book series. So there's 3 books there. And then my latest book is called Just Ask Spirit. And so I've been writing I've been publishing since maybe 2012. I published my first book. And I did that after I decided to take a break from my career. I was working as a school psychologist in the public school system. I took a break because I was pregnant. So I took a leave of absence. And during that time period, I really was trying to figure out how I would go back to that work, the hours that required, and be a mom. And so I started writing, about what's that going to look like? I knew that the way that I had done things before I left couldn't continue. I wouldn't be able to put that kind of commitment in. And then as I began writing, I realized that a lot of people could benefit from what I was writing about. Ended up self-publishing that book. And then lo and behold, later I call it divine synchronicity. I'm at a preschool with one of my daughters and someone approached me and they said, I read your book and would you consider writing for us? And so I was invited into the publishing industry that way. And they wanted me because I had more of a mindful approach. And back in 2012, there weren't as many. Now it's like huge and many people. But back then, they really people were a little bit more clinical focused when it comes to things like anxiety. So I started writing about anxiety. That's, where it all began.
That's so cool, though. I mean, that's just like, they come up to you, you self-published, and someone walks up and goes, hey, come write for us instead. And you're like, well, why not? Sure. So that's so cool, though. I mean, that's got to feel great, though, that you're using your own experience to help other people. And, and you said you were the first in the space anyways. And it's like, there's a bunch of other people in there, but it's all about quality versus quantity. Really honest, if you think about it, you can write 1,000 books, but if they're not any good, they're not going to do anybody any good.
Yeah. I mean, traditional, I mean, the ones that are really well known. I'm not sure if that's changed or anything now, but
Yeah.
generally they do look for some credentialing in terms of, do you have any kind of licensure or anything behind you, especially when you're talking about things like anxiety. It's different
Yeah.
if you're talking about like personal coaching or things like that. But when you're talking about a medical diagnosis, that is something that they do generally want to see for sure. And so, yeah, it is interesting to me. It's funny because, I have on my podcast, which is just Us Spirit, I have a astrologer that comes on my show once a month, and we have fun with all that astrology stuff. And so she ended up doing my birth chart for me. Um, and so she did my birth chart, and I looked at it, and within that chart, it said your career, what you're supposed to do for your career. And, number one was writing.
That's crazy.
Number one was writing. And number two was teaching. And number three was something with radio. And it blew my mind. This was like maybe a year ago. So it's so funny. Like you think, you kind of dabble in these areas. And then when I saw it, she's like, it's in your chart. You're supposed to be doing what you're doing. So I think when your path is your path, and it will find ways. I mean, for me, it literally came into my life. I wasn't looking for it. I barely told anybody I published a book because I was so new at it. I didn't feel comfortable talking about it.
Right.
I literally was like, oh yeah, it's a little thing on the side, but I did spend a lot of time on that book. I will say that first book.
Yeah. Yeah. So then 11 books later, we're up to what is you knew when you said it's just Ask Spirit, right? Just like the name of your podcast. So what's that book about?
Yeah. So that they've all built upon each other. It's interesting. It's like
Yeah.
it's like the stages of development. And one leads to the next. And Just Ask Spirit it's a book about learning about your intuition, learning about how emotions, most importantly. So that's sort of like my staple. So some things shift in my writing, some things are just the foundation.
Yeah.
And so foundation for all of my work is your emotions matter, processing them matters more. That's my motto. Your emotions matter, processing them matters more. What I learned was when I was helping people, so a lot of people come to me for anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and now I do personal coaching. They come to me for anxiety. I help them, teach them. I was using my emotional detox tools to teach them how to process their emotions. They learn how to do that. And then what ends up happening is their world starts opening up, because anxiety is a very limited world,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're living, it feels like there's a lot of limitations on you, and it's narrow. It can feel narrow. It can feel like you're trapped. And when you get overwhelmed, your world feels smaller. So
Yep.
as people start to process their emotions, then their world opens up and they start asking questions. And they want to know about, okay, is this anxiety or is this my intuition?
Yeah.
Am
And
I
that's
picking? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, and that's a it's a good thing too. It's like when you said it's like your world closes in. That's exactly how I describe it to people. I'm like, when I've had an anxiety attack or whatever it is, it feels like you're just like in this dark hole and everything's so close around you and you could see it above you where reality's there and it's like you can't get there and it's like you're struggling to get there and you feel like you're trapped. And I use the movie Get Out as a good example of it because it's like the guy was stuck in the chair, he's looking up, he sees everything, but he can't get out of the chair and get out to where he wants to go. And it's what it feels like sometimes when anxiety just takes you over.
Yeah. I mean, that fight, flight, freeze response is no joke, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's real, and it can be very paralyzing to people for sure. And again, it can be crushing, depending on the levels of anxiety that you're experiencing. So it just sort of felt like, yes, emotional processing is important, but if I can then bridge them into opening up their minds, and which is naturally what happens when you process. So what I learned was, when you block your emotions, you block spirit. When you block spirit, you block your emotions. It's either way. And people
Yeah.
find when I talk spirit, I'm talking energy, I'm talking
Hmm.
consciousness. I'm not speaking to a specific religious belief or getting anyone to believe in something outside of what they feel comfortable believing in. But it basically is an energy that it reminds you that you have unlimited potential, unlimited, infinite potential. And it connects you to something greater. And it reminds us that we have support, that we don't have to suffer, and that we can ask. And here's the thing, Pete, what I find is Spirit once said this to me. So a lot of my books are channeled. I
Hmm.
connect to Spirit and they come through. And it's just when I say connect to Spirit, I'm just connecting to the part of myself. I practice it, the part of myself where ego, I do my best not to go in the ego,
Yeah.
the fear, the scarcity, the me. And so I open myself up to receiving information, guidance. And it's usually so I know it's spirit because it's kind, it's loving, it's supportive, it's a lot of wisdom comes through that way. It pulls me up. So I just know it lifts me. It makes me feel lighter.
Yeah.
And so I forgot, lost my train of thought there, but that's precisely how it's a description, of what
Yeah.
people feel. It's an experience that they get. And once they get it, they do want more of that. But you do go through a process because just like emotions, there's a lot of conditioning. So with
Yeah.
emotions, we're conditioned. Some are bad, some are good, some are right, some are wrong. Some you want to feel, some you want to hide. Don't let anyone know you feel shamed or embarrassed or whatever it is, right? It's the same thing that happens with spirit. They're very similar where people they get scared. There's conditioning there. Is this right? Is this wrong? Do I let myself believe in this or
Yeah.
that? Am I doing something wrong here? And so I find either way, you're kind of in that trap state. And there's been a lot of research around this. They've looked at anxiety around religion. They've looked at different mood disorders. They've looked at PTSD. And it's been very interesting because there's evidence. They've looked at recovery. There's evidence of how believing in something higher can be very, very bringing those symptoms down.
Hmm.
And then there's some evidence where if it gets too confined in thinking, right? So the mind limited thinking. So perhaps maybe if religion gets too pressing,
Hmm.
right? Narrow, that can actually contribute to anxiety. So it's, as you dig through the research, you can see, and we're researching it more and more where it's like, where's that medium for people? Where's that comfort level? But I don't think you can get there without allowing yourself to process what you feel around the whole thing.
Yeah, no, and I've been getting more into energy and everything like that, and I've had a couple of people on the show that were energy alchemists and things like that deal with a lot of energy because I've experienced it myself. Like I get this feeling, and it's hard to describe to most people, but it's like a spider sense like ability. And I'm a huge nerd, so it works well for me when I say that. But it's like this sense of feeling like when I'm talking to somebody and they're really close to me, I can kind of feel like, yeah, I don't like this person for some reason and they just give off a weird I call them vibes. They give off weird vibes to me, and it's me reading their energy like, yeah, I really don't like this. They feels very toxic when and it's like, but then when they leave, the feeling goes away, and it's like, well, that makes sense because only when you're around or you're close, I can feel that, and when you go, it's like, okay, well, it's a lot better now. I feel good, and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's true that emotions are contagious, that we can
Hmm.
pick up on, it's called emotional contagion. And we can pick that up even through social media. There's been research on that. I can look at somebody having a breakdown in social media or upset or venting or angry. And I can pick up the energy of that
Yeah.
emotion if I'm not from a state of awareness. And so when we process our emotions, we are elevating our consciousness, our awareness of what's happening. So for me, that sounds like you're aware.
Yeah.
You have a sense of awareness, which is a heck of a lot better than being in that situation and not having that self-awareness, staying in a situation like that. And then before you know it, you can't see through the weeds. Is this mine? Is this theirs? Am I having a bad day? I mean, how many people with anxiety, they internalize it like it's them. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I feel like crap today. I'm upset, I'm depressed, whatever it is. And they didn't have the self-awareness like you have to say, that was interesting because I was picking up on that when I was around that person, that energy or that situation. And so, you try your best to do in a way that's non-judgmental for others. It's just an energy. And I love the way you focus on the energy of that rather than that person's not a good person, but something energetically didn't feel right.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a weird feeling, and it's like you just have this sense, like it's something that's not right about this person. Or they give off kind of like really creepy kind of vibes, and it's like, And I'm really good at reading people too. Is another thing I've learned after a while. I can read a lot of body language and stuff, and sometimes you can I try to anticipate situations where I'm at, with things. And it's like you notice these things, and most of the time I'm pretty spot on. Sometimes I'm off a little bit, but it happens from time to time. But I've always had that sense of feeling though. It's like I know, like I was alone one time in my teens, and I was going somewhere, and I was in the dark house doing something. I was going room to room. And all of a sudden, I felt this like static like feeling, like almost like that feeling when you take a 9 volt to your tongue kind of thing, and you feel a little shock, like you feel that weird feeling like something's there. And then I shot off into another room and turned the light on because I was just like, all of a sudden I started panicking, and then I was good to go as soon as I got in that other room, and I was fine. It was just like, oh, that's weird. And that's when I first started noticing this thing. And then later on, as I kept interacting with more people, I just started picking up that weird sense. And I just started realizing that I'm sensing something at this point, and it makes sense now because now I've talked to a bunch of people that do have a bunch of energy and things like that. And it's starting to make more sense to me as it makes it more clear too. It's just that feeling you get when you're close to people. And it's not passing judgment. It's just like something about this person doesn't feel right, or you feel like, I don't know. Something tells me I can't really trust you. And I don't like people is what I tell people, but it's like not that. It's not so much that. It's just I like certain people I don't care for. Like I'm like, yeah, I just don't like what they're selling you. Like, or they're trying to put on a fake persona and try and say something else, and you're like, yeah, but I don't think so because I'm always listening to what they're saying. And, a lot of people tend to trip up their own stories when they start saying things and they start backtracking. And it's like, yeah, see, something's not right about what's going on here. And then when that sense kicks in, I can start feeling it. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense now. Something isn't right about this person because they started changing the story. The story changed 4 or 5 times. And it's like, yeah, I don't know about that. Something there, you're not telling the truth.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like you're very intuitive and you might be even picking up on things psychically
Yeah.
and people. And I think, it sounds like you might even pick up maybe their intentions.
Hmm.
And we do sniff out agendas if you let yourself trust that. And I think in this day and age, people are being encouraged to trust their gut more because there are
Yeah.
so scams and things like that happening. They're like, if something doesn't feel right, you gotta listen to that, and gone are the days where it's like, be nice, you
Hmm.
know, be nice,
Hmm.
don't be rude, don't be, sometimes you do have to be rude
Yeah.
or excuse yourself. It doesn't mean you have to go, be a jerk, but
Yeah.
you can be firm
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
not interested. And I love the way you make that conscious choice, your free will to change the environment, change the situation, not just sit in it kind of thing. But yeah, the world of spirit it's a big world. There's
Yeah.
spirit. I connect to spirit. The one I'm talking about is the one that makes me feel safe and loving and supported and open and healing light. And then there's the spirits,
Right.
which sometimes can be around because we know that people pick up on that too. The spirits. I talk about it in Just Us Spirit. I've had clients like yourself
Yeah.
tell me pretty creepy situations, where they're in hotel rooms and they're feeling stuff and picking up on stuff and they're like, something's not right. And then they leave the hotel and they find out the hotel was haunted. And they're like, oh my gosh, I felt that. Like nobody told me that, but I knew something wasn't right in that room. I
Yeah.
have a whole story of that in Just As Spirit. And really it's not to scare people, it's to let them know there is a difference between the two. That's not the one I'm teaching you to connect to.
Right. No, sorry. Joe's a listener of the show. He's always
Hi,
coming to tell
Joe.
you. Joe said hello to you, by the way, too. I don't know if you saw that earlier. I knew
I
you were talking.
did. Hi,
So
Joe.
Joe. Hi Joe, how you doing, buddy? But yeah, I'm so fascinated though by the spirit itself because it's so interesting because it's like you're tapping in and they're feeding you all this knowledge and things like that. And it's so cool to see. And like now, like I said, the more people I interview and the more things I learn, ever since me and my wife got together, she's big into like, stones and spirits and all this other stuff. She's been teaches me a lot of things. And it's like now I'm a little more heightened sense when it comes to lifestyle because I'm like, now this is not like it's not really weird to me. It's more I'm fascinated now because now I'm like, oh snap, okay, cool. This is really interesting to me because she's told me all about it and all the different properties of the stones and things like that. And she does a lot of she did tarot card readings too. Like at first, I was one of those skeptics, but then she did one and I was just like, what? It's so crazy because how close it is to what you're exactly thinking at the time too when she had done it. And she's like, yeah, you're thinking about something. And I was just like, what? I'm like thinking the whole time thinking, how's she reading my mind? Dude, this is so crazy because it's like she's using these cards to predict these things. And then she told me about the star signs, you know, and I start looking into that and the different characteristics each person that has them. And it's so crazy how much they align. And it's so fascinating and stuff like that too.
Well, that's what happens is thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Definitely, Joe, check
Yeah.
her out.
Oh, thank you, Joe. I is your mind starts opening up. So once
Yeah.
you start releasing anxiety and you start realizing that, you're intuitive and you start embracing who you are, and you start to peel away some of the labels, right? Anything that's inhibiting your ability to feel. Sometimes the label's great, but then sometimes we need to detach from it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you hit a wall after a while. And that's normal, right? In the beginning can be like, oh, there's a name for what I'm feeling. That I feel so good about that. Like I'm not crazy. Like other people have it too. There's that time that you
Yeah.
go through but then after a while, you're like, you stop growing and
Yeah.
you realize, okay, if I loosen this up and start to open my mind, I'm going to even get more information like you. And now all of a sudden, like anxiety becomes smaller
Yeah.
and all this other stuff, this new information, ideas and consciousness, this starts to come in and you start to become interested in new conversations. So now you're not saying, oh, hey, let's hang out because we both have anxiety and let's talk about that. But no, let's hang out and let's have a conversation about this cool energy thing that we're
Thanks, Joe.
vibing with.
But yeah, I agree with that too. It's just like ever since the more I learn now, the more I want to know. And it's just like it's so cool because I bring people on the show and they have all these different aspects and a lot of them spiritual too. I think we had one that was I had actually two mediums that come on that I'm really interested in because they were talking about your past life, and a past life you were somebody else, and it was crazy because it's like she was telling the story about a gentleman who had this weird phobia of needles and then found out that in a past life he was lethally injected. And I was like, what? I'm like, that's insane. Like, it's like, how? But it's like, it makes sense. So think about it because he always fainted when he saw needles. And it's like, for anybody skeptic, it's like, explain to me how that makes sense. He has a phobia of needles. But why does he have a phobia of needles? He didn't just develop it all of a sudden. Something had to happen that made this happen. And that makes sense, though, if that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, some of the most famous mediums and psychics, like Edgar Casey. I don't know if you've ever heard of Edgar
Yeah.
Casey's work,
I've,
but
I've been doing some research
yeah.
ever since I met those mediums. And
Yeah.
yes,
I
now I
mean,
know who that
he,
is.
he talks about how you have to be sort of attuned to get
Hmm.
into these records. So, a lot of people teach like Akashic records and things like that, where they're getting in basically it means your soul records, where
Yeah.
my other lives here. There is an attunement process and and what I love about his work, which, when I did Just Ask Spirit, I did a ton of research. I did a lot of research around mental health and spirituality and the benefits of spirituality on mental health and the anatomy of spirituality and the brain, and how when you process your emotions, you're actually stimulating very similar centers as psychic mediums and channelers.
Yeah.
So there's certain areas of the brain that will activate, and there's certain areas of brain that will become more quiet. So you're interrupting the distractibility piece, and you're increasing flow when you channel. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing when you emotional process. You're interrupting the frontal lobe piece and increasing the areas of the brain where you're allowed to process things. And how do we get interrupted is when we, what I was told by spirit, and that's how I got this information, and it's in Just Ask Spirit, is that a lot of people are re-traumatizing themselves.
Yeah.
So that's an interruption. So if I tell my story, if I have a feeling, and then I go and I think about the story that's attached with the feeling, or I revisit it, or I replay that, or I ruminate on it, I sit in it, I can re-trauma. It's like my body has to go through it again. So of course I naturally, I don't want to do that anymore. It's like, I'm like, emotions, stay away. Like, I've had enough of you, kind of thing. So in Just Ask Spirit, I teach people, my motto is feel first, then ask spirit, how to feel your emotions, process them without re-traumatizing yourself. And then at the same time, so you feel, and then you go in, and then you ask, and you connect with spirit. And this is where, I really align with a lot of Edgar Cayce's work, and that he was really devoted to learning about Jesus, for one, was very, very devoted. He really learned about not just Jesus, but different, I think he read the Bible like 60 times or something.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, that's what people need to do, but there is a devotional piece to this. So when I go into my Just Ask Spirit practice, I'm processing my emotions, but I'm also devoting myself to the energy, the higher energy of consciousness. So some people might call it the Christ consciousness, or the divine feminine consciousness, or the Buddha consciousness. These are consciousness, that energies, frequencies that contain the life force, that contain transformation, that can help heal not just ourselves, but that get us out of the victim. So when we're in that victim mentality, we are not in our higher selves. We are not powerless. And so there is this balance of, okay, I'm going to process my emotions, but then there's also a piece where I'm going to learn how to connect with spirit in a way where it's not about what can you do for me lately, spirit? What you got? Give me the goods. That's not how spirit works, at least the spirit I'm talking about, because they're not there to serve ego.
Yeah.
They're not there to inflate, like an archangel. Arch is chief, IEL is messenger from God. They're not here to inflate ego, false ideas and narratives. So that's okay if that's how you start, but you start to untangle that in the practice throughout.
That's so cool. I'm just so fascinated when you talk about the spirit and how you connect to them.
You can probably feel it, Pete. Do you feel the energy of it when we talk?
I do a little bit. It's just like, it's so encapsulating. It's just like, wow. I'm so fascinated.
How do you pick up psychically? Like, are you a feeler? Are you a seer?
I kind of feel, it's like, like I said, I feel the presence of something there is how I
do. You feel it now?
Yeah, I do. When you started talking about it, it was just like I felt this feeling just wash over, but it wasn't like a bad wash over. I was just so focused on what you're saying. So when you stopped, I was just like, I was still in that trance. I was like, man, this is so fascinating. I love it. It's so fascinating to me.
Well,
and
you feel the comfort,
yeah.
because
Oh yeah.
they're with us all the time. They're not separate from us.
Yeah.
So yeah, the more they start, my whole body starts to tingle when I talk about
Exactly, exactly
it.
what I was feeling when you were talking about it. I was feeling it, and just as I started talking again, now I felt it wash over again. Like he's like, "All right, you're good, buddy. Don't worry, I'm here." And I'm just like, It's so cool though because I'm so fascinated by it, and it's so amazing because it makes sense
It's
now.
like a
All the feelings I
blessing.
am, yeah, you know what I mean. And it's how they say some people are put in your path, like God puts people in your path, or whatever higher power puts you in the path of other people to meet each other along the way for some reason. And it's just like, you being here today, maybe that was just somebody putting us on the same path to light me about, spirit itself. So I know that's what exactly I'm feeling at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you that, nothing happens by accident,
Yeah.
that, illustration is how I came into the publishing. I mean, that was not on my radar. I did not have a vision board. I did not have, I wasn't reciting anything. I just was listening to my heart, and I was processing. I was sorting through how was I going to live my life through writing? And basically, what I didn't know at the time is I was channeling.
Yeah. That's so
So in
cool.
my mind, I'm like, I'm writing it down. But looking back, I was receiving the divine guidance. And through that, and I was devoted to my writing. So anything that you're devoted to, whether it's your marriage, whether it's your children, whether it's to, Mother Earth, any kind of sense of devotion, that's a high spiritual quality. You don't have to necessarily go to church to feel of
Exactly.
that devotion. It's what
Exactly.
think about if your audience members could just think about, what am I devoted to? Like, what
Exactly.
am I really committed to in my life? That is it. That is your high spiritual quality. If you're not really committed to anything, then you want to sink into something. Well, where do I feel? And when I mean devoted, it's not just about time. Remember, there's no time in spirit. It's
Hmm.
it's like a I don't waver in how I feel. So
Yeah.
let's like Emotional Detox was all about my my marriage and helping my marriage. And then I wrote 2 more emotional detox books after that. Um, and it was like I was devoted to the process of healing.
Yeah.
You're devoted, Pete, to the process of healing. That's a high. You're not going to waver. If I said to Pete, come on, take a break, from this healing stuff, you'd be like, no way.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny you say that because that conversation did come up.
Yeah,
It was like, the conversation basically was like, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing this podcast." I'm like, "Why? Why not?" I mean, it's something I want to do. It's like, it's that devotion. I'm devoted to this thing. I love it. Every
I
time
can
I get
tell.
on this mic, I enjoy
Yeah,
it. I get to meet new people. And it's like the person was trying to tell me to stray away. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm going to do this regardless whether you like it or not. This is something I'm passionate about. I like this. This gives me a good feeling. I like to hear other people say, "Hey, Pete, I appreciate what you're doing." And it's like all we're doing is having a conversation. And that's the crazy thing about it. It's like I'm just giving people the space to come talk about these things and feel like, it's a safe space. And I get to meet cool people every day, different people from different walks of life at different things. And I go research different things after I finish talking to people. I even read a book about breast cancer memoir to hear, and people were looking at me weird about that one. It's like, dude, let me tell you, go read it. It's powerful stuff, man. Like the end of that book, holy crap. It's just like this woman puts these pictures out there, just the vulnerabilities out the window at that point. She's showing you the whole process of the whole thing. And I'm like, listen, man, I think everybody's too worried about black and white. Let's just if you're fascinated, go look at it. Why not? What is it harm is it going to do to you at the end of the day for you to learn more about something, And especially people that go through cancer and all that other things, like, this is just actual insight to what someone is thinking, and it's like you could feel the story through them. And then she had these really great poems that broke up the book too. And it turned out that they were actually from her own personal journey, her journal she had that she's never shared with anybody. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is even better because it's like when you read them, you just felt it. It was like, wow. And it's like, and it's just words on a page to most people. To me, it was just like, man, I'm feeling this. And then you get to the back end of the book where she starts showing some of the pictures of the process of what she was going through. It's just like, holy Lord. Like, you didn't have to say anything. You know how they say pictures have 1,000 words? It was like, oh man, you could feel it when you're looking at these pictures. And it's just like, gosh, man, it's like, I don't have to be female to understand what she's feeling at this point. I can feel it right there. I'm looking at it. And it was just like, it was horrible, but at the
Mm.
same time, this is someone else's journey they're dealing with. And it's just like, it was great to see the comeback, it's always how, like they always say, like, no matter how hard you fall down, it's how you get back up. And it was just like, that was just a journey of perseverance. She was just going through so much. She lost her identity, that identifies as a woman. And now she's
Mhm.
got to kind of redefine that as she goes. And then you're watching this process happen. And these photos are just like, whoa, man, she's just putting it all on the table for you.
Well, I mean, what you're speaking to is vulnerability, and that's another
Hmm.
spiritual quality. And to the person who was kind of discouraging you from doing podcasts, those are moments where we really learn what we care about, what we value, what's important to us. And there will be people that come. I've had so many people in my path that have just tried to discourage me, oh,
Right.
the world of publishing is tough and they take all the money and blah, blah, blah. I mean, you hear it all. People who feel
Hmm.
that they got burnt in the industry, and you go to them, and after a while, you have to sort of say, okay, maybe I'm going to stop asking and just really you'll feel it, but it makes you stronger.
Yeah.
If you don't veer, it really means that's your path.
Had I veered, let's put in perspective here. Had I veered, I have, like, from you on to October, I have 150 people lined up to just come on this show. Had I
Wow.
veered, this would have never even been possible. When this show started in the beginning, there's such a demand. I was already out to December, just at one time spot at Mondays at 10 a.m. because I'm on a network. Had I
Mhm.
not done this thing, I would have never had these opportunities I have now, and it's like, it's more and more evidence of that. This is something I need to do, because, like, there's 151 people that want to talk to me between now and October, and there's more people that just keep wanting to sign up. So this thing keeps going. So it's a strong enough thing that there's something there. It's like, I've got something that people, really enjoy. And it's great because you have all these other people, and then all these other people start talking about, like, hey, I just was talking about you. And it's weird, because then some people are like, oh, I've listened to your show. And I'm like, oh, you listen to me? Like, it's crazy when people say that to me, because I'm just like, wow, okay. Like, I think I'm starting to realize how powerful it's becoming, and in the message of
Mm,
just talking about the subject is making
mm,
people feel so great in the conversational style of interviews I do, because I don't really interview people. I do more
right,
like conversation, because I feel it's more fluid. I mean, you can get more out of somebody in a regular conversation than grilling
right.
them in an interview. We're not
Yeah.
all these other guys, yeah.
Can I read you something
Definitely, go
from
right
just
ahead.
that spirit, because it's speaking to what you're saying. Um, so this is page 14 out of the book, and
Okay.
actually cite the Course of Miracles here, and it's speaking directly to what you're saying. The Course of Miracles says the Holy Spirit needs your voice so it can speak through you, your mind to hold its messages so that you can extend them, and where the Holy Spirit directs, and your feet so that you can go where the Holy Spirit directs for you to be delivered at last from all perceptions of misery. And this is my words. When spirit is present, all irrelevant information dissipates so you can pay attention to the heart of the matter as a way to support your soul's journey. So again, those are my words. And when spirit is present, all irrelevant, so all the things that don't have meaning,
Yeah.
that don't matter, dissipate so you can pay attention to the heart of the matter as a way to support your soul's journey. And so what I'm hearing you say as I read that is that you're able to pay attention to the heart of the matter.
Yeah. I feel it
And
too.
and that is part of being because I'm a podcaster too,
Mhm.
is that is part of it, is getting to the core of things, bringing the meaning out, and being a voice for spirit,
Yeah.
being and I love that. So I just thought I would read that to you. I had it underlined
When
and
you
I'm
started
all
reading
ready to
that
go. What's that?
when you started reading that, I just had this sense of just, like, complete focus. Like, everything around me didn't matter. I was so hyper focused to what you were saying. It was almost like he was washing over me, and he's just like, "Hey, man, zone in." As soon as you started saying that and started talking about it, And when you got to the part of your own words, and then I was just like, that was it, dude. It was this feeling. And now the feeling's gone, but it was just like it washed over, like nothing else around me was existing except for what you were telling me just right then and
And
there.
that's what it's like to be in the now, in the present moment where everything is. It's the only thing that's real.
It's so real. It's crazy to explain to anybody. Like it's
People don't
so
understand. They believe all these lies and they're falling
yeah.
out, it's tricky. I was thinking about this and, I'm also a psychology professor and,
Mhm.
I was thinking about this because I just taught the other night. I teach, and I was thinking how, the marketing world is so designed to reflect back your problem.
Mhm.
If you think about it, um, that's the way they work it is you have this problem, I have your solution, right?
Exactly. Yep.
And I have your service, I have your product. You need this because you have this problem. I mean, that's how they're successful. Really, that's
Yeah.
their thing. And I just thought to myself, I am not buying. That is not how I'm choosing to be in this world. I want to be a reflection as you
Yeah.
do. We are reflections of their wholeness, of their light. I don't want you to come to me because I'm reflecting. Oh, see, here's your problem.
Yeah.
My hand is your problem. You need me because you got this problem. Right.
Right.
But more so, I'm going to reflect your light, reflect who you truly are.
Yeah.
And so, we have a choice. We have a choice. We can fall into that, which is, again, it's all around us. So we get in this illusion. I better do this. And then we compare ourselves to others. And all of that contributes to anxiety.
Yeah.
All of it. Anytime we separate ourselves, anytime we judge, anytime we, our expectations, all of it. And so think about that. I was thinking about that as I was driving. I was like, it's really interesting. So much is built upon that. But when you go into the spirit, it doesn't even exist.
Yeah. I told
There's no
you.
problem to reflect.
I'm telling you, it was great. Like I said, when you start reading that, like everything around me didn't even matter. It was just like it was so like it was a feeling that just washes over you, and like everything else around you just kind of it's kind of like almost like tunnel vision. Almost because you're full. I'm so focused on what you're saying, and everything else around me didn't matter because it was silencing everything out. And it was so peaceful
Yeah.
at the same time, and it was the greatest feeling ever. But it just washes over
Yeah.
and it just kind of goes like that, and it was just like it was in a weird feeling to me. It's not weird because now I understand what it is, that
Yes.
sense of feeling I've had before, and it was really it
Yes.
was really great. It was awesome, actually. I
And
kind of
it's
enjoyed it.
instant. This is what I
Hmm.
love, and
Exactly.
that's where the Bible says, ask and you shall receive, right? And so you have to sort of look into, well, what is my ask, right?
Hmm.
What is it? Is what does asking look like? And sometimes asking is just having the intention, and you have that intention here, your intention is to help people and your intention is to provide the space and your intention is to, be of service. So
Yeah.
that is, that's ask and then you shall receive. And sometimes our intentions are our asks. Sometimes we do have requests that are very specific. Hey, I could really use your assistance with this. We do need to ask because of our free will.
Hmm.
So we have to invite spirit in. It's not that they're not there for us, but they like to be our guides. They like to be invited in because they don't want to interfere because they love you so much. And so if you block it, I did a Just Ask Spirit retreat maybe in January. Um, I took them through my process. So in the book, I have a 7-step process for asking spirit. First part of the process is feeling your emotions. Then you go into your ask. Then you get your answers. And one person had Jesus come in. So we're in a circle. And I said, did anybody get it? She said, Jesus came in. I was like, okay. She's like, I don't do Jesus. And I was like, okay, this is up to you. Sometimes it's a figure. Sometimes it's what does Jesus represent? You know,
Mhm.
most people associate Jesus as a healer, a healing. Um, for me, Jesus always, I always experience that energy as a healer, but I also experience Jesus as made a very concrete, a devotional choice,
Mhm.
a choice. And sometimes when I feel that energy come in, I know, okay, this is the energy of like choose, like don't waver, be focused here. It's courage. It takes courage sometimes to make the choices that you have to make, or not be worried about what everybody else is going to think or how they're going to take it, or and just choose.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the point is that things come in and then it's your free will. If you want to go with what comes it through, that's up to you. I'm not here to say to you, oh, okay, now you need to, believe this. It's you get to decide that. And what I find when you teach it that way, people get very empowered. They leave, they think, I have a choice here. Yes, you do. You can receive that, not receive that, sit with that, process that, open yourself up, close yourself, whatever it is, that is up to you to
Yeah.
decide. And that puts them in the driver's seat. And I find that that can be very, very empowering and lets people really get to know their own free will.
Yeah. That's so powerful though too, that she just saw Jesus and she doesn't
And
really
she
resonate
doesn't,
with that.
it's not her thing.
That's so crazy,
She
you
was
know?
shocked. She was shocked. And I was a little shocked too, because I could see the skeptical, a lot of skepticism there. But again, okay. I wasn't like, awesome, wonderful. Oh, you're so lucky. I didn't
Right.
do that because that, again, that's pressure.
Yeah.
That's putting my stuff on somebody. Oh, you should be so happy. You should be grateful, right? That's us putting our judgments. We have to take ourselves out of it
Yeah. No, I
and let
agree.
let people have their own experiences. It's their experiences.
Yeah, because it always shows that too. When you try and force somebody to do something, it's like, oh, okay, they're tending to stray away and resist. But if you just kind
They're
of let
like,
them go with the flow
hmm,
and
yeah,
let them feel it, what they're feeling, it's different because then you'll see
yeah.
they're more receptive because it's their own choice and it's not you making them make that decision. And I think that's the thing about religion that turned me off at first was just like people just force fed it to you, and I was just like, yeah, but it doesn't have to be like that, unfortunately. It's like there's just those people out there that feel so fanatical and so empowered that they just feel like they're doing the right thing, but they're really not. You're really just kind of making it a bad relationship between them and the other, and then the whole thought process is alone because they're like, yeah, well, this one person told me that everything I did was a sin and this and that. It's just like, no, and it's just those type of people you run into. I mean, and that's the great thing about the world we live in is that there's so many different people. Whether you choose to listen to them or not is really up to you. Honestly, you're an adult at that time. You can make your own decisions whether to listen to somebody is shoving at you, or you can make your own decisions like I did and just decide, when the time was right, the time was right, and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I went to Catholic high school and I remember sitting and waiting to do confession. I was so angry. I was so mad. I was like, this isn't right.
Yeah, because it
It
doesn't
just
feel
felt
right
it
because you're
felt
being
very
forced to do it.
robotic. Like we're all in a little line, we're sitting in the pews and we're waiting to it just felt so unnatural. Like, really? This is how we're gonna do this.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
It's not to say I don't have something to ask for forgiveness for or forgive myself, but it just felt like forced.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and so instead of, are you ready? Are you open? Are you willing? Is this comfortable for, where are you at? I mean, it's a journey.
Yeah,
It's a journey. So yeah, I mean, that's what I write about in Just As Spirit in terms of the conditioning. We have to work through that. And I thought I was pretty open. I mean, when I wrote it, I thought I got this. And even
yeah.
I had to work through I'm like, oop, this is coming up. And I didn't have very like parents that were very pressing on
Mhm.
anything. But I think just the world around you. And
Yeah.
I did go to a Catholic high school for a little while, and I didn't realize just those 2 years there did impact me a bit. Plus, I married someone who's, Irish Catholic, guilt all over the place.
That's what he said because my wife's Irish as well. So it's
Oh yeah,
like,
it's pretty strong. It's the guilt thing's pretty strong.
that's right.
He's
Yeah.
he's pretty raised on guilt.
Yeah. 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 Oh, you did something wrong. Yeah. Yeah. I could feel that one. Well,
It
as,
happens.
as we get ready to start wrapping up, I know you have somewhere to be here pretty soon. So, did you want to go ahead and plug your website, let everybody know where to go? I know you have all the other books listed. Joe's actually said he's all over it, guys. Like he said, I'm all over it. He's
Oh,
got it right
thank
here.
you, Joe. I love your picture, Joe.
Yeah, Joe's a great listener. He always comes in all the time and always has a lot of things to say and stuff like that. So it's always great when he comes in.
Oh, yeah, he's got a great energy about him. Yeah, so my website is sheriannaboyle.com, and that's where you'll find all my books. You can go to Amazon to find Just Ask Spirit. You can also go to justaskspiritbook.com. I am doing a big Just Ask Spirit event March 19th. If you're
Hmm.
interested, you would go under Just Ask somewhere under just somewhere on my website there. Yeah, I think it's under Marketplace or something. But
Okay.
I'm doing that through Kapalo Yoga and Health Center. So that's going to be an event where I teach people how to connect to spirit, but it's going to be fun because it's going to be worldwide. And we're going to be kind of doing what I just did with you a little bit but we go through the 7-step process.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm
And it's
definitely
not very expensive, so that's nice too.
I'm gonna definitely have to check out the book because I'm really interested too, and things like that, and like I
Yeah.
want to know more now because like I
Yeah,
felt it, I
I
felt
think
it.
you're
I'm
gonna
just
like
like
it.
I was like I felt it. I'm like now I gotta get the book now. I gotta go check this out. So how's your podcast go? Do you guys do
Yeah,
you do weekly and things like that too?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do a weekly podcast. I'm laying a little bit, I'm a little backlogged like you like you.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
really
it gets
backlogged.
backlogged quick. But yes, I do a weekly podcast. Yep. So they'll find that all at sheriannaboyle.com.
It's all
Yeah.
there, guys. Go to the website, go and say. So thank you so much for coming. This has been
Thank you,
fantastic.
Pete.
I really enjoyed it. I definitely, like I said, I'm definitely have to check out the book.
Thank
I can't wait. I'm very excited to read more, to know more, and things like that. And I'll have to check out some of the other ones too,
Awesome.
and all
I
that
think
stuff. So I
you'll really
appreciate.
relate to Just Us Spirit. I think you're
Yeah,
really gonna relate to that one.
I feel
Yeah.
like after the way that little bit you read, it hit me, and it just that, like I said, a feeling of spirit just washing over and
Yeah.
just quieting everything
Yeah,
else. It's
that's
like,
the
yeah, it's
one.
a sign
That's the book. Yeah.
I need to read it. Yep.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you, Pete, for your
well, you guys,
generosity.
don't. Like I said, it was great. It was so great to have you. You're such a great person to have. I'll definitely invite you to come back again because I'd love to talk to you
Thank
more
you.
about whatever else we could decide to talk about at the time. Do you have any books, by the way, coming up, or is there nothing else really planned yet?
Well, I've got a deck I'm working on, Emotional
Okay,
Detox deck.
okay,
Yeah, and I've got a couple other things, like little projects I'm working on that will go with the books.
awesome.
So, yeah. Yeah.
All right. All right, guys, I'm
Okay.
going to wrap up this episode of Pete for Exciting. I know Sherian's got somewhere to be, so let's go ahead and close it out. You guys are going to find me on Pete for Exciting on pretty much everything: Facebook, Instagram, X, all the way down to TikTok. You can find the podcast and the audio side from Spotify all the way down to iHeartRadio. And as I always say, it costs nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind of act you could do could save somebody's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete for Anxiety signing off saying, don't ask how your day is, ask how your mental health is today.